We begin CBS2 News at 5 with breaking news. 3 deputies are hurt outside an elementary school in Highland.
CBS2's Tina Patel is live on the scene with the very latest. Tina.
Yeah, it was actually 2 deputies and an investigator with the DA's office who had come to this residential neighborhood to check out a possible shooting. They were outside their vehicle when that black car that you see behind them came up and hit them. That car now flipped over. Let's show you a little bit of video from Sky 2 earlier so you can get an idea of the scene here. Again, we were told that they came to the neighborhood around 2 o'clock. It's near Warm Springs Elementary School. There had been some call about a possible shooting. So the 2 deputies and the investigator with the DA's office was investigating that. They were outside of their SUV when for some reason this other vehicle came slamming down the street, lost control, hit the back of the sheriff's SUV and then flipped over, hitting those 3 men. They have been taken to the hospital. We're told they do have severe injuries but are expected to live. As for the driver of the SUV that flipped over, he appears to be okay. We're told that he is a 20-year-old man. He did not have a license, and from what we could see earlier, it looked like investigators were giving him a field sobriety test, but right now they have not said anything about whether any drugs or alcohol may have been a factor in this crash. But again, the good news is even though those officers and investigator do have severe injuries, they do believe that they will recover. We'll stay here on scene and continue to bring the latest information as we get it. For now, that's the latest from Highland. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Tina. The hunt for a killer after a man and his elderly parents are found murdered in a home in Leimert Park.
Neighbors are in shock and on edge after that triple homicide at a home on their quiet street, and police are looking for a person of interest in the case.
A neighbor called the LAPD to do a welfare check on the elderly occupants of the house in the 3900 block of South Bronson Avenue. That's when the bodies were discovered. And
CBS2's Amy Johnson is live near the scene with more on the victims and the investigation. Amy.
Well, Pat and Suzanne, those 3 bodies were found inside this home that is owned by Philip White. He actually started the neighborhood watch in this area. Now he and his parents are dead. They were found by his son who came here last night. He said all of the doors were locked. He started looking through the windows. When he got to the bathroom window, he says he looked inside and saw all 3 of them piled on top of each other, dead.
They were killed. They were murdered.
It was Tuesday night around 8 o'clock when a man found his father, 62-year-old Philip White Sr., dead inside his Leimert Park home. He also found his grandparents, 82-year-old William Carter and his 77-year-old wife, Orsi. Police say all 3 were locked inside this home and had been placed inside the bathroom. Investigators say they died from blunt force trauma, and 2 of them had also been shot.
It is real horrible to hear that.
News of the murders has hit this close-knit neighborhood hard.
Oh, it was real sad, real sad.
Burrell has known Philip White for decades.
Oh, he's a beautiful person. And we're neighbors and we stay close to each other, communicate with each other, and help each other.
Neighbors say White, who retired from the probation department, lived here for 40 years. He was diagnosed with MS and now needed some care. His parents would come visit a couple times a week to check on him. They came to see him on Monday. This Mercedes registered to Orsi Carter is what alerted neighbors that something was wrong.
His parents just came by and visit maybe twice a week. And that's what was odd, because the vehicle that his mother has never stayed there overnight.
Detectives say nothing appears to have been stolen and they don't know the motive, but they say they're looking for this woman, 55-year-old Nancy Amelia Jackson.
We believe that Nancy is a material witness and she might have information that would tell us what went on inside that house.
It's not clear if the 2 were romantically involved, but Jackson reportedly helped care for White and had recently moved in.
He was taken out of his normal routine once she came into his life. Once in a while you would see arguments.
Police say she drives a 1998 white GMC SUV with California license plate 4BGN193. And if you know where Nancy Jackson is or you have any information about this crime, you're urged to contact the Los Angeles Police Department. I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Amy. A major blow to the Mexican Mafia in Southern California. Raids led to dozens of arrests. CBS2's Dave Lopez is live in downtown L.A. with information on what the gang members are accused of. Dave.
Well, all kinds of things, all the way to murder, racketeering, embezzlement, drug trafficking, all from behind bars. 87 were targeted, all but 16 were arrested, so 16 fugitives. So detectives say this was a very good day for them as far as this investigation went that lasted almost 4 years.
I'm not going to say that we've decimated this gang. We have made a very substantial blow against this gang.
And the numbers are impressive. In a pre-dawn raid, more than 500 law enforcement officers arrested 32 alleged gang members off the street and 35 alleged members of the Mexican Mafia who were serving time in LA County Jail awaiting their trials, transferred them to federal custody, and included in the arrest the so-called ringleader, Jose Landa Rodriguez, described by some gang experts to me as, quote, the most powerful, influential inmate in county jail.
Landa Rodriguez controlled all drug trafficking in the jails.
The indictment alleges all on orders from Landa Rodriguez, 55 years of age. And the indictment says he had help from an attorney, Gabriel Sendejas Chavez, who was arrested this morning at his home in Ontario.
The contraband is already inside the cell.
Detectives say the Mexican Mafia had such control and the system was so well run that anyone who didn't cooperate or try to go against them was beaten.
Stabbed, kidnapped, and killed. These attacks were designed to instill discipline for violating Mexican Mafia rules.
Detectives say this is taken from security video in the jail that shows Mexican Mafia members beating an inmate who wouldn't cooperate. And the indictment also says that Landa Rodriguez ordered at least 3 murders out on the street.
Weapons that we recover.
The investigation alleges that Landa Rodriguez had such power that from behind bars, he would order gang members on the street to purposely break the law and get arrested so they could smuggle drugs into the county jail. Again, investigators say that the Mexican Mafia has been crippled, not completely taken out of business, but their leader is gone. And the big question is, how was he able to stay in county jail for almost 4 years to do all of this and never have to go to court for whatever he was being charged with for embezzlement? The answer there is his attorney. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Dave. USC will hire outside counsel and have an independent investigation into the sexual misconduct scandal involving a former doctor at the school's Student Health Center. USC is already facing several lawsuits on behalf of women. They claim Dr. George Tyndall sexually assaulted them. 200 professors signed a petition demanding the university's president resign over his handling of the investigation. Critics say USC did not do enough to address the abuse accusations that go back as far as the 1990s. Besides the outside counsel, the Board of Trustees announced it will form a special panel to look into the reporting failures.
Well, we're learning more about the investigation into the Las Vegas mass shooting as the latest documents are released. The documents show police initially thought the Vegas Strip was under a large-scale attack. They had gotten reports of shooters at resorts all over the Strip. Police released 2,000 redacted documents today. One officer working at the concert said they believed it could have been a Mumbai-style attack, referring to active shooters. Security at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino had no idea that the gunfire was actually coming from their resort. Yeah, it took a while for them to find that out. But 58 people were killed in last October's attack, which is the deadliest mass shooting so far in modern U.S. history.
President Trump's Twitter account was the subject of a federal court ruling today. A judge said it violates the First Amendment for the president to block critics on the social media feed. In the ruling, she said no government official, including the president, is above the law. The case was brought last July by Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University and 7 individuals who were blocked by President Trump after criticizing him. The Justice Department says it disagrees with the ruling and will consider its next move.
White House advisor Jared Kushner now has permanent security clearance. Kushner, who is also President Trump's son-in-law, lost his access when White House Chief of Staff John Kelly downgraded his clearance. Now, that happened after questions arose during Kushner's background briefing. Kushner has operated under a temporary security clearance for the last several months.
Take a knee, get a fine. The National Football League has approved a new policy about the ongoing national anthem controversy.
It requires all players to stand for the anthem, but only if they are out on the field. And CBS 2's Jeff Vaughn is here to explain what the NFL calls a compromise, Jeff.
Well, the players didn't have a say in this, so you wonder what's going to happen when the first game begins. But that's what's decided today by the league and the owners. NFL insists the decision isn't about patriotism, instead about the league's brand, a brand that's caught now in the rift of polarized politics and a racial divide. The 32-member clubs of the National Football League unanimously approved a new policy at their spring meeting in Atlanta to address protests during the national anthem. It states, all team and league personnel on the field shall stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem.
We think that we've come up with a balanced process here and a procedure and policy that will allow those players who feel that they can't stand for the anthem to stay in the locker room.
There is no penalty for staying in the locker room.
I would agree with that policy, and I would prefer to see that.
I want these guys to be able to express what they believe inside their hearts.
Former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick kicked off the movement in 2016, quietly taking a knee during the anthem to protest police brutality and social justice issues. But the display quickly turned into a polarizing political issue.
Get that son of a off the field.
The Players Union says it was not part of these discussions, and the so-called compromise is only between the league and the owners, not the players.
I think the right question would be, well, what do you do now? And I think about me, and I think about what guys that on this team are doing. Like, we're already in the community. We're already finding ways to protest police brutality against people of color.
The league says it will fine teams if players continue to protest on the field. So the Players Union says it will review that new policy and challenge any aspect of it if it is not consistent with the collective bargaining agreement with the league. And Pat and Suzanne, that's kind of where it comes down to, is the players haven't had a chance to react to this yet. So there is still time between now and the season where they can kind of maybe negotiate something.
Well, and we know we have the top negotiator in the White House.
There's a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure he had a lot to do with talking to the owners.
He tweeted about this today, but you know, it's not just President Trump weighing on this. A lot of people have weighed on this in Facebook and social media. A lot of people seem to have an opinion on this.
All right, thanks for that, Jess.
You bet.
Well, new privacy concerns over Amazon's decision to sell a powerful facial recognition tool to police.
How it works and what's being done to try and stop it.
Plus, guilty. We're live in Orange County, where a serial killer was convicted today in the deaths of 5 women.
Also, Beverly Hills police called into action after reckless drivers and large crowds swarmed streets on the west side.
And soaring prices at the pump, the highest in 4 years. What's pushing the increase? And what can you expect to shell out to fill up this holiday weekend?
You know, I once had face recognition thing going on.
Yeah.
And it actually looked at me and said, amazing. And I said, I know. Coming up, the weather, it's on the way.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it.
That was a long bid.
They couldn't believe it.